Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Hard Truth Studios, high atop Rick House number 1 on this incredible Friday. We've made it to the end of the week. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being along with us, no matter how and where you're listening. Our good friends down on the river, 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call, down in the Evansville area, southwest Indiana. Up in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. And, of course, the voice of the region, WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. Keep it tuned to all these stations. We're finished for continued local coverage. And glad to have you along on this beautiful Friday. Although a calm Friday of sorts, as we will not, there's no football game for Indiana this week to follow, as they're on the bye week, of course, as we've talked about, as is Nebraska, their next opponent. So looking forward to talking about these games later on today. Zach Osterman will join us. Todd Leary will join us. Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, as well, as we'll talk about the Colts. Jeffrey the Greek, unfortunately, is not able to be with us today. Let me know a little bit ago. So a little bit of unfortunate there, but we're still going to talk some games. There are some big ones this weekend that we'll get to. Ohio State, Oregon, none bigger than that, especially in the race for the Big Ten to stay up, and because it is going to be, I think it's going to be a wild finish. I really do, to the Big Ten race, because while Ohio State plays Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana, those are the top 3 teams not named Ohio State, I think, have a shot to win the conference, to yes, Indiana's in there, to go to the college football playoffs. And Ohio State is the only common link there. Now, well, I shouldn't say that. I know there are other similar crossovers, but let's see. USC went to Michigan and lost. If Indiana beats Michigan, that would give them a heads up in a tiebreaker. And that's how the tiebreakers would be done, for one. I'm thinking of Penn State. I don't have their entire roster in front of me, but I'm trying to think of a good game crossover. So we'll see. It's going to take a lot of ciphering, So glad to have you all along. Maybe you can help us do all that counting, as it's going to take something. But yeah, don't forget to get your college football picks and your college pick'ems. I think I took care of that for myself early on this week. Let me see if I did. Get over there to the pigskin pick. That's not it. Under the wrong one. I'm fairly certain. I'm mired in 11th, and it's not bad, I guess. It could be worse. But so weird. I'm not seeing it popping up on my pull-down tab here today. So, oh well. We'll maybe we'll go to that one, and then that will pull it up. There we go. All right. So I'm 31-27 overall. Number 11 in the group, it looks like. So not too bad. Could be worse. JB, James Bowers, is leading it. You're out in front of everybody. 41-19 against the spread. You need to start giving me some picks, man. That's a good record. That'll make you some money. Dave Littleswope running second, tied with Ethan P. and Kevin Sawyer also tied there at 36 and 23. Not bad either. There's Taylor Lawyer, Derek, and Brian, along with Jim Fleener, all there next. And then you get the rest of us. But who are this weekend's picks? I think I have mine in. Yeah. Army, surprising this season. That's one of the teams that Notre Dame will have to go through, but they've been a little bit of surprise along with Navy. Clemson is a 20.5-point favorite against Wake Forest. Missouri, man, they've got to get back after that loss to Texas A&M last week. One of the big games of the weekend, the old Red River rivalry. Number 1, Texas Longhorns will travel to take on the Boomer Sooner, Oklahoma Sooners, and 14.5 points is what Texas has given up. Notre Dame, in the meanwhile, is hosting the Stanford Tree. Purdue, I think that their downward spiral will continue this weekend as they take on an Illinois team that Illinois is getting 19.5 points at home. Georgia, a big favorite over Mississippi State. Tennessee, favorite over Florida. And Oregon is getting 3.5 points at Ohio State. We'll talk about that game today. And then Boise State, ranked number 17, big-time favorite over the Hawaii Rainbows. But we'll talk about all that good stuff and more coming up later. As you know, I've been talking, and I'll look forward to talking to Zach about this. The SEC and Big Ten in meetings, the commissioners, and that basically about what the future of college football is going to be like. And the SEC and Big Ten, without question, they have control over college football. That's not going to be something liked a lot by Jim Phillips of the ACC or the people from the Big 12, but it is what it is. And ACC is probably going to be the most outspoken because they're the weakest league out there when it comes to football. They just don't have much. And the Big Ten and SEC are basically saying, hey, we don't need you, in essence. There's a few teams we'd like to have, but as a whole, we don't need all of that. They're trying to get rid of the dead weight and create a product, like I said, that is more akin to the NFL. And there are teams that need to heed the warning. Purdue is not having a good go of it right now. Could they ever be kicked out of the Big Ten? It's not the Big Ten. I think that would be I don't think it would affect the Big Ten or conferences. I think this is going to be a football thing only, where football kind of has a little breakaway from all the other championships, which it's different already as it is. It's not managed by the NCAA. The college football playoffs are completely different. And yes, I could definitely see and think that there will be at some point a group that is comprised of whatever they want to call it. But I just made this up, but the CSL, no, that's not it. The CCL, the Collegiate Championship League, or CCFL, the CFL, Collegiate Football League. There we go. No, they've got CFL. That's Canadian Football League. Man, everything's taken. All the acronyms, all the good acronyms are taken. Glad to have you along here at the Hard Truth Studios, high atop Brick House number 1. Hope you guys are picking up on that. You got to move. You got to move the barrels around, man. Sometimes we'll be up on floor 9. Sometimes we'll have to go down to the mid-level. A lot goes in to making great bourbon, and no one makes better bourbon than Hard Truth Distilling Company and their sour mash bourbons. Make sure you visit their location over in beautiful Brown County in Nashville. This weekend is a great weekend to go out to Hard Truth Distilling Company's location there in Brown County. Enjoy Brown County. There's no Indiana game. You can catch some other games. Enjoy a good meal in this great weather. So, what a good time it is to do that. Maybe I'll do that this weekend. It's the only time I get a chance to get over there. Let's see. Looking at the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. What are my picks? Oh, yeah, I gave those in the college pick'ems. Let's see. See a lot of chatter on there about some different bets and whatnot. IU game officially a sellout versus Nebraska. Yep. Not a shocker. That is a big name game now. You've got a 6-0 Indiana and a 5-1 Nebraska that will be coming in. But we'll talk about all of that and much more when we come back. The man, you love him, you know him, you can't live without him. From myjumpshot.com, the Todd father, Todd Leary, joins us when we come back to the Hard Truth Studios as we take a pause for the cause. Remember, this segment brought to you by the Hard Truth and the Ugly Grouper down on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Thinking about all of our peeps, as I know that they got hit pretty hard there with this latest hurricane. So thinking about all the people there at the Ugly Grouper. If you're in the area or will be, make sure you stop in and give them some support and tell them that Indiana Sports Beat Radio sent you. We've got lots more coming up. Back with it right after this. Well, that's not a good one, is it? Hello, sir.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Back to where we can talk during the commercials.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I hate it. I hate it. The people hated it. They like to hear what the Todd father's got to say off air.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
What are you off the road today?
I am right now. I might be leaving here soon, but right this minute I am staying home.
Well, if you're around when we get to 10:10,
yeah,
I'll text you. But Jeffrey the Greek normally joins us. He can't today.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go through some college picks, man.
Cool.
I had a parlay last week. Just 3 legs. I'm trying to learn my lesson. No more than 3. No more. That's it. I'm tired of it. And I took Indiana, gave up the points. I took Texas A&M over Missouri, and boy, they jumped.
Did they win big? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I was like, oh wow. I was like, heck yeah. And Michigan screwed me. Michigan. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
You know better than to bet on teams that have bad offense.
Oh, yes. They don't have a quarterback, man.
Nope.
They keep. Is it Jack Tuttle? Is it this guy, the guy that can't throw the ball?
Yep.
What's new with you, man?
Not a lot. Same old.
Been out to the gym at all?
I went and watched the girls practice last week.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
Good. It was fun practice. It looked good.
Yeah,
That
Gritty always says.
new girl that transferred in from Tennessee can shoot.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
You know, I don't say that about a lot of people.
Nope.
She can shoot.
You know, Mackenzie Mbako grew an inch. He's now 6'9".
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, wow, who grows in college, man?
That's crazy. Him and David Robinson.
Exactly. You wouldn't remember him, but Carl Liebert played. Well, no, he was before you. It's when I was there. Played on my high school team. He couldn't even. When he was a junior, he was playing JV. Because he was 6'6" and had long arms, but he could jump about 6 millimeters.
Right.
But as a senior, he played. He may still hold the rebounding record at home, the Holman Center, and from a semi-state.
Really?
He had like 28 rebounds against Washington. And
really,
Noodles Neal. We lost to Noodles Neal.
That's a good.
And
name.
soon as I had never heard that until Charles Barkley said it one day, and I'm like, what? How the hell does he know him? But anyway, as soon as he said that, I knew exactly what he was talking about, because seared into my brain is him driving the lane with legs going everywhere. And that's all I can think about or remember from that. But yeah, that stunk. That stunk. Don't forget, Rob, you got to keep me on track here.
Good luck, Rob.
And you have to unmute yourself because I can't hear you talking if you're talking.
You're all good.
Okay. How much time we have left?
You got like 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. Just let me know when.
Sit it right at 17:30.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Studios, as promised. Joined now by our good friend, the Todd Father from myjumpshot.com. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. Todd Leary, how are you, sir?
Well, I am not introduced that way very often, but most people would like to live without me. That's for sure.
No, that's the life that I lead. But how's everything been going? Enjoying the football season?
I do. Yes, I you go that whole summer long, and really the only sports after the NBA finals is golf at that point. So it's always welcome late August, early September when football season rolls around, because as much as I love basketball, the best spectator sport for television, in my opinion, is football.
Yeah, it's fun, and college football is fun. Looking to change. I was just talking about this. The Big Ten and the SEC in meetings in Nashville, in essence, to take over world domination and the college football. That is probably their ultimate goal. To steal a line from Wedding Crashers, and they'll take on the Klingons next. But yeah, it's going to end up being. College football will end up being something akin to the NFL, with in a league that they have. I think Matt Taylor, who will be with us today, I remember he has told me each year there's 4% of the teams make the playoffs that did not make the playoffs the year before. So that gives you a kind of slow churn on different teams coming up and rising up, that so they don't always suck. I guess that's not always the case, but for the most part, who's a team that just continues to stink and never gets better? There are some, but that will eventually have to fall back on management, team ownership, and things like that. Yeah, it's no matter what, it is not going to be like it used to be. Right. Nothing is going to be like it used to be, and people might as well just get used to that, because change is never going to stop.
Yeah, well, and if you would have said, whether you're talking about in college athletics, whether you're talking about football or basketball or whatever the sport might be, I think if you would have said 10 years ago, what it's going to be like in 2024, people would have literally thought you were nuts. And so we'd probably be crazy to not expect that same level of change in the next 10 years ish. And I think, right now, college athletics is kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to the money and the NIL and all that stuff going on. And that, I think we saw it go from 0 to 100, just allowing pretty much everything. And I think what we'll see in the next few years, don't know that it'll stick forever, but I think we'll start to see, some limits and some reins pulled in a little bit on the way things are done right now. Because right now, I mean, you could basically give a kid whatever you want to give him to get him to come to your school. And they're making business decisions now, not just like athletic decisions. The schools are.
Yeah, there are still going to be the kids that are tweeners that have the talent, but maybe not the NIL draw, but still want to win. And that's an area where Indiana's going to have to be ahead of the game on, I think. But someone like Kurt Cignetti obviously does a pretty damn good job on judging talent and taking mid-major type talent and turning them into D1 winners. He's done a pretty good job of showing how that works so far. And that's also going to help in recruiting, but Indiana's going to have to get more acclimated in on the football side of things, NIL, but that has been made easier because of the settlement that was approved by a judge this week to go forward, that House settlement where they'll be dispersing money, over $20 million a year to the athletes, and it'll be up to them to decide how that goes. But of course, if you have half a brain, you know that a chunk of that's going to go to the sports that bring in the money and bring in the eyes, and that is football, then basketball. And with where Indiana is like that is going to help them be a part of this going forward, because Indiana's football program would be one that is cast aside if had they not made this change and if this is not sustained, because they want to. I can just kind of get a sense of the SEC, especially Sankey. I think the SEC is leading the charge. The Big Ten is probably going to go along with it because they have that same power, but it's kind of join the party or get left out, and or have another alliance like Kevin Warren wanted to have. But yeah, it's going to be weird to see how eventually they do this, how many teams that ends up being in this quote unquote super league that I think will come into be. And then how many teams from outside of these two colossal conferences are brought in. Florida State, that's one of the reasons why they went out of the ACC. Clemson, whoever else is those are the two schools that are suing them. I forget, but
I think so.
Yeah. And then now, and you've got the best schools from the Pac-12 already. Then there's going to be some schools from the Big 12 that you'd want to get in as well. So it's going to be weird, but it will also bring better games every week. So that's going to be the upside. There's going to be a lot of people disappointed, more disappointed than happy overall, probably.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're speculating as to what's going to happen with that. I agree with you. Something's going to happen. Like there'll be some changes based on everything that's going on, like these conferences talking and all that. And I don't even hate it. I'm not the old guy sitting here saying I don't want change, but I think they didn't plan ahead well enough on how they handled the releasing of the NIL stuff and all that originally. And, a couple years into it, now they still got court rulings, like you just said this week, on, how much money they can disperse. Then they're really putting the schools in a tough spot. And yeah, it's a lot of money. But they're putting the schools in a tough spot because, if you're giving every school the same amount of money, or relatively close to it, and you're looking at like in Ohio State versus, I'll say, Northwestern, for example, you're looking at, obviously I think Ohio State's going to give the majority, I don't know if that's the right word, there's a whole bunch of that money allotted to the football program. And I mean, I just don't see how that's going to be fair going forward, because I just don't think some of these other schools are going to be able to compete in that scenario. So then in that case, there needs to be some kind of super league or something like that. I don't hate that side of it. The only part of it that I don't like, and I've said for years how much I hate the IHSAA decision to go to class basketball. And the argument always is how many more schools can get involved and all that. And so, yes, I understand that, and I hear it, and I do see that side of it. I don't agree with it, but I see that side of it. But I think college athletics is kind of getting ready to put themselves in that same scenario where the little guys, the teams that, the Milans of the world, there's not going to be that opportunity for that. Like those smaller schools, if you're not part of that super league, you're not going to have a chance to win at all. And that's, that's the kind of the beauty of sports is, how many times every couple of years do we see, some super underdog make a run and either win the championship or, get really close to winning the championship. Got teams making the Final Four that we would never guess going into a season making the Final Four. That's what makes that tournament the best tournament in the world. And I think you kind of eliminate that when you get to the Super League situation.
Well, I think this is only going to involve football. So it won't affect basketball. The NCAA, nothing to do really with running these football championships. Actually, they have nothing to do with it other than just enforcing rules. But the SEC and Big Ten alone combined have 34 teams. That's about the number of the NFL, right there alone. So there you go. But some of the lower tier programs, are they in danger? I don't know. Will the leagues fight to keep them all in? Probably,
Jim, look at it this way. Like I don't even know what they call it now, but like, what's your opinion on like the CFL or what's that U.S. Football League or whatever they did last year or whatever? That's what those smaller schools are going to become. And as much as I just said when we started this segment, how much I love watching football, I've never one time watched a CFL game or a USFL, whatever that's called, game. I have zero interest in that. And so I'm afraid they're going to put themselves into a situation similar to that.
Yeah, and the Big Ten SEC looking at potential scheduling arrangements. The biggest obstacle there will be getting the SEC up to 9 conference games versus the 8 they currently play. Big Ten playing 9 conference games, that makes a huge difference. But that makes it more difficult on the Big Ten, in my opinion, because if you're already playing 9 conference games, you add a 10th game against an SEC school, that leaves you with just 2 non-con games. So I could see the pushback from the SEC in that regard, but I don't see the Big Ten going backwards to 8.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of goofy stuff going on with that is above our heads and not a lot we can do about. We just kind of sit back and report about it and deal with it when it happens. But, back to Coach Cignetti, what he's accomplished in putting Indiana even into this conversation where we're allowed to have fun talking about it is really, that's the story. Heck, you saw Troy Aikman talking about him at length all week long. I believe me, and I'm not trying to be doom and gloom here, but I'm not going to pass total judgment on everything, 5 or 6 games into the season. Like we'll judge it after 1 season, we'll judge it after 2 seasons, after 3 seasons. But for everything they could have been asked to accomplish up to this point, A+. You could not possibly ask for any more.
Oh, it's incredible. And a lot of fans are concerned, and I understand that Indiana will lose Curt Cignetti because
I'm one of them.
They're schools like Florida who are sucking right now, had a great tradition.
Florida
They're going to be
State.
coming after him.
Florida
State, but Florida State's got a gigantic buyout. They're kind of
buyouts don't matter anymore. Look at Texas A&M; they're paying $76 million.
I don't think everybody else wants to do that, but yeah, that's a concern. But this may help ease that to say, hey, man, that along with going to Florida, going to Auburn, or someplace like that. That's well, this is not. I don't want to say it's not a challenge to win there. It's not the challenge it is at Indiana, and where it has never been done like this in this era, in this type of what they've already accomplished. I think Kurt Cignetti loves being that guy that is able to do what virtually nobody else has been able to do, and he's doing it at a place where no one said he could do it. And no one, it's nuts. So I think he loves that challenge. I think he loves that little bit of bravado. He kind of reminds me of Vince McMahon, where Vince McMahon, a lot of times was showing it was a character out there. I think he enjoys getting out there and hooping up the crowd. Purdue sucks, and Michigan and Ohio State do too. He loves that stuff. And if he continues and takes Indiana to a point to where they are competitive year in, year out, then there's no reason for him to leave. He's 63 years old now. So that's just a lot of change at the end of your life. He's not been a job hopper. He wasn't looking for a job when Indiana came calling. So I think that even though his success is great, I think he's just going to enjoy the hell out of that success and continue to do it where no one else has done it, as long as he's getting the love from the fans and the administration. And the fans are definitely coming around. Nebraska is sold out now, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're writing a book and he's a character in the book and this is a big story you got going, I hope that that's the ending that it ends up having. Being involved in sports and athletics and competition and all of that, I mean, you always want to get to the top. You always want to get to the point where you have the opportunity to beat the best teams in the country. And I'm not saying, going and putting himself in a position where it's going to be harder to slay the monsters of Alabama and Georgia, because obviously I don't know when they're not going to be good again. So do you really want to go put yourself in that position? Right now, he's really got Ohio State's the king of the hill. And Michigan, I guess you can kind of slip in there because they won the national championship last year. But
Cheaters!
I don't think that they're proving it's hugely sustainable. And with a new coaching change and all that, I don't want to be negative Nancy here, but it's going to be very difficult to keep him. I honestly believe that. I don't. If you were him, he's not from the state of Indiana. He doesn't have a huge tie to the state of Indiana. I think we'd be a little bit nuts to think that there's not a pretty good chance he would leave.
And I don't want to be blind and dumb to it, but I also look at the standpoint. His coaching staff has been together for a while. He's got top guys that have been with him for between 6 and 10 years. They also just moved their families to Bloomington as well. And I think that Indiana sees the writing on the wall with these meetings that I just talked about. They damn well better. And we'll try to lock him down. And again, you've got no pressure at Indiana to win in football. You're setting the precedent. There is no precedent. You are making it every week right now. So and I don't know the pressure would bother him, to be honest with you, but there is none at the moment. And it's all, of course, it's all rainbows and unicorns right now.
Yeah, there is, because they're 6-0 and they've beat 4 bad teams. I mean, I'm happy about it. I'm excited. I love watching them. They're a fun team to watch. They look like they passed the eye test. They look like they're still going to be good when they play the really good teams. So that, but you just can't sit here and predict and say, they're going to beat Michigan and Ohio State and those teams, that they don't have to beat both of them this year in order to call it a successful season by any means. But I'm just telling you, in my opinion, I'm going to sit here and hold my breath at the end of the year that the scenarios don't pop up. Let's just look at it this way. I mean, you're going to say, yeah, it's a crazy scenario, but look at it this way. We just read from one of our listeners on there that he's from Pennsylvania and played at West Virginia. What if the Pittsburgh Steelers job comes open? You wouldn't leave for that?
I don't see him moving to the pro ranks.
I mean, you would only say that because he hasn't shown that he hasn't done that in the past. Otherwise, why would you say that? Why would you? What would make you think he wouldn't have any desire to go to the pros?
Age, like I said, he's 63 now. By the time he got to a pro job, he's going to be like 65. That's and to have
I just threw Pittsburgh Steelers out there. They've got one of the longest tenured coaches in the league. That's most likely not the case. But Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, that dude's on the hot seat. They better start.
I think that if it was going to be someplace, I think it would be a college team, just because that's what he's used to dealing with. That's
West Virginia. So what if West Virginia comes calling?
No way. He's not leaving the Big Ten for a lesser conference. That I can guarantee you. Okay. It would not be, and so therefore it would have to be the SEC, and of course the SEC is the football juggernaut of college football. I don't care what the AP poll says right now. I'm just
playing devil's advocate.
I get it.
You're dead on. I hope you couldn't be more spot on.
Well, and it makes sense, and especially if this were any other time, Florida. Think about Florida State, the Swamp. What those games are like. Not like right now because they suck, but yeah, if you build it, they will come. Indiana's going to sell out the rest, and I alluded to this a couple of weeks ago, but I think Indiana sells out. There are 4 remaining home games. They're going to set an attendance record this year without question, but that comes with a caveat. Indiana's season attendance record this year will be slightly less total attendance than what Michigan gets over 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, we can't compare those because that's apples and oranges. Like, those stadiums are almost twice the size of Memorial Stadium.
I can also see a scenario where Kurt Cignetti builds this. It gets close to retirement time for him. His guys have been with him for a long time. Somebody from that group steps up and takes over the reins, specifically probably Mark Shanahan, who has been with him as the OC, and I could just see that scenario playing out.
Well, I think it'll be a bigger difficulty for him to hang on to his staff moving forward from now because of and they were very successful at James Madison. We all agree with that, right? But there's not very many schools that you're seeing go hire coordinators from James Madison. But you do see them getting hired away from Big Ten schools all the time. And so if they have an enormous amount of success here and, they have a defense rated in the top 20 and an offense rated in the top 15, to hang on to those coordinators, I mean, those guys probably have head coaching aspirations as well. And I don't think that Coach Cignetti's timeline of coaching is going to match up too well with theirs. Like, I hope he's here for 10 years plus. And I just don't see those guys with that amount of success hanging around for that long. I think that they don't all, I'm sure some of them aspire to be head coaches.
Yeah, that's what I've wondered, how in the hell he has been able to keep these guys together.
Because they're at James Madison. When's the last time you heard Mississippi hired an offensive coordinator from James Madison?
Yeah,
doesn't happen very often.
I cannot disagree with you, but the success factor as well. There's no way that they couldn't have. Kurt Cignetti could have left had he wanted to.
Look, I'm going to throw out the Deion Sanders thing at you because it just drives me insane that people don't talk about it anymore. But all the hype that came with him when he went from all the success
I've been talking about that this week, by the way.
And all the success that he had and you know.
Well, the only success he had was bringing in players. Bringing in players.
I mean,
he hasn't had success on the field.
Jacksonville State.
Oh, Jacksonville State,
yeah. Like the amount of success that he had there, you know, didn't translate to big time. And right now you're in the same scenario. James Madison, Jacksonville State, not huge difference, little difference, not huge, but the step up. Right now it's translating, and if it continues to translate, then they're going to be the hottest thing on the market. Like if they have a super successful season, like I am the guy who's on the other side of this, because if they win 10 games.
What was that?
If they win 10 games, you're not keeping them at Indiana. I don't think.
Oh, they're winning 10 games.
That's
they're
just
winning
my
10 games.
If they win 10 games, there's going to be a gigantic checkbook out for somebody.
All right, I'll tell you what. We're gonna make a bet. I will. I'll put either up a round of golf or dinner someplace. I know how you love to cook, so I'll put a dinner on the line someplace.
11-1. I like it. I love our enthusiasm.
Dude, 11-1 is well within the realm of possibilities, and it's not as crazy as it sounds.
Gee, I wonder why you can't win betting.
I've got a ticket up there ready to cash, baby, big time. But you're right on the other ones. That makes some dumb ones there. But I think Indiana is just better than Nebraska because of their offense. It's not by a lot, but I think they're better. Their offense is just ungodly efficient. They score whenever they have the ball. I mean, their efficiency is off the freaking charts.
When they play Nebraska, will that be the best team that they've played so far?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think every game from here out is more difficult. Washington will be more difficult than Nebraska was. They're coming off a win over Michigan. Michigan State, because you're at Michigan State. That's still 80,000 people. I know it's a so-so team, but do you think it's harder to go play at Vanderbilt or at Michigan State? I'll still try my luck at Vanderbilt over going to Michigan State. Then you've got Michigan at home. Obviously another tougher game. Then you go to Ohio State. Then you got Purdue, which they suck, but it's a rivalry game, and we know what happens in rivalry games. So, yeah, I think every game is going to be slightly tougher than the one before that, but I think Indiana's going to continue to improve. But where they are miles ahead of people is their offense, and it is Curtis Rourke, number one quarterback in the Big Ten, number one in yardage, number one in touchdowns. He is leading this offense like he has been in it for 4 years. And that's another thing. To see this offense come together and perform pretty flawlessly is wild when you think about it.
Yeah, but you like, I asked you that question because I kind of knew what the answer was going to be, and I think you kind of proved my point for me. Like, there's no point in comparing this Nebraska game to the other games that we've played, because Nebraska is the best team that we're going to have played at that point. And then after that, Washington's going to be the best team that we've played at that point. Once we start clicking through these next few games, yes, I think we will all, if they continue winning those games, we will all just sit back and ride and enjoy it and know that it is absolutely for real. I'm just saying 6 games into it, I'm reserving my enthusiasm just a hair.
I am not. I've spent too many years having to tell the truth and the hard truth and nothing but the hard truth during the years of Archie Miller and all of that. I am so happy, I'll be honest with you, to be able to say, you know what?
I agree.
It's good. I'm getting to find all this positivity to talk about, which I'm not accustomed to, man. I'll be honest with you. But man, I hope you have a great weekend. Oregon, Ohio State. this weekend
That's a fun
at
one.
Oregon.
That's
Who do
a
you
fun
think?
one.
Who do you got in that game?
I mean, I haven't watched Oregon play at all. Well, I haven't watched Ohio State play at all either. You generally in college football,
neither has beat anyone of note.
well, I guess generally in big time football, you go with the team with the better quarterback, and I think Oregon has the better quarterback.
Dylan Gabriel.
What do you think? What do you think Ohio State would do for IU's quarterback right now?
Guess where he transferred from?
Yeah, I know, Miami of Ohio.
No,
he's right down the road.
Ohio, the Bobcats.
Oh, he was? I thought he was
Yeah, Ohio.
Was he? Ohio?
As was Miles Cross, one of his top receivers. Both of those guys came from right up the road from Ohio State at Ohio.
Yeah.
But they were busy recruiting those 5-stars.
Yeah, I got you.
Brother, I appreciate you. What's up next for you? How's myjumpshot.com going?
It's going. We're working. We're trying to fit time in to get everybody done.
Well, that's always a good problem to have. As you draw closer to the start of the basketball season, we are 1 week from Hoosier hysteria. Will you be able to make it out there?
I probably will not. It generally always runs like right during a good football game, and it's generally not all that exciting.
It's on a Friday night.
If I had young kids going to something like that, yes, I definitely would. But it's worth it from that perspective. But from an actual basketball perspective, probably not.
It's a dog and pony show. I mean, it's a lot of lights.
It's an event.
Yes,
it's not
exactly
competitive. Yeah,
exactly. Todd Leary, the Shot Father, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Make sure you keep up with, if you have a kid, know a kid, or a kid that needs help on that jump shot as you get ready for the season, go to myjumpshot.com. That's where you get it taken care of. Appreciate you, my friend.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
You betcha. We've got to take a break. Remind you that this segment was brought to you by myjumpshot.com. In addition to Remax Realty and Cheryl Sizemore, for those of you in the need or market for a home in the Indianapolis area, reach out to Cheryl. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We'll be back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios after this message. All right, I've got 50-40. Does that sound right? See if you could just unmute your mic. Now talk. Nope, can't hear you. You got to be added to the stage, I guess.
Are you talking about the time? I've got, I'm at 48.
Okay. You mean when we broke? The only thing
when we broke, I have 47-36.
Yeah, so it's just like 3 minutes exactly.
Yep.
In between.
50-40.
And one other thing, the only thing we missed on that last segment intro was the music.
Okay, I'll get it.
Oh, it's so, even though there's no one here to talk to at this moment until this is going to be a very short segment, FYI.
All right. Oh, did you see the Boozer twins committed to Duke?
No, I did not, but that's not a surprise, but thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah, not too much of a surprise going to follow in Big Booze's footsteps, but
yeah, no, not at all. I mean,
it's two big gets. What is that, number 2 and number 17?
Yeah, something like that. I saw them play last year when the Chipotle National Finals that are now, what was it, Brownsburg? I forget where that was.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they're going to come up here. We got we have Lalamere up here. I wonder if they'll come and play them this year.
Where are they playing?
I think they're somewhere in Florida.
Like IMG? because
I'm not sure.
they're not at Montverde, but the high school national finals is in Brownsburg. Those teams like Lalu, Montverde, IMG.
He goes to Columbus High School in Miami.
Wow, he just goes to regular high school. Love to see that. Okay.
All right, you got about 30 seconds.
It's not enough.
All right, I'm going to take myself off whenever you're ready.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios here on this Friday. Appreciate you being with us. Indiana Sports Beat Radio, Jim Coyle with you as always. Looking forward to talking with Zach Osterman in a little while. Matt Taylor will join us as well. We'll talk about some football coming up this weekend. A lot of big games. Indiana off with their bye week, as is their next opponent, Nebraska, which is pretty unusual. I don't know that I've seen that this year, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for that game. Maybe it'll make it a better game. Maybe it'll make it a classic. We shall see. But I will tell you right now, all day and twice on Sunday, I will take Curtis Rourke over Dylan Riala. Not that there's anything wrong with Riala, of course, but Curtis Rourke has just proven to be a surgeon for Indiana. And I've talked about how he is the leading quarterback in the Big Ten. Well, he is. And he's leading by yardage, by stats. And we'll talk about more of that in a little bit. But Robert, the producer, has pointed out that Duke gets a double commitment from the Boozer boys, Carlos and Caden. They will follow in their father's footsteps. They announced today that they're headed to Duke. Of course, they'll also cash in on, well, now it's NIL, but it wouldn't have mattered. They would have gotten paid regardless. Did I say that out loud? That's okay. But it's good. Hey, that's okay. I think that's a good thing to see. How long will those guys last in college? I think one's better than the other. I think Cameron, the 6'9" power forward, he's ranked number 2 in ESPN's rankings. He's been considered one of the premier prospects in all of high school ball for the last few years. He's even ranked ahead of Cooper Flagg entering the summer of 2023. But a lot of that is just ranking guys setting that stuff up. So we'll see. But there you go. Indiana waiting on some chips to fall. They've got offers out. Earlier in the week, we talked about Eric Reib has Indiana in his final 5, I believe, along with UConn and Kansas, among others. Indiana is in that group with everybody. Braylon Mullins, huge for Indiana as they're trying to land their second, truly only their second big-time in-state recruit under Mike Woodson from start to finish. Trent Sisley obviously committed to the Hoosiers, and he'll see if he can recruit his AAU teammate, Braylon Mullins, to the squad. We've got a lot more coming up here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star will join us next, as well as Matt Taylor from the Colts. We've got plenty of football to talk about when we come back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after these messages. Yeah, I don't care if we do music on the way out, but on the way in.
All right, no problem.
See what that way, I'll be talking over it. On the way out, we can just go flat into commercials.
Okay.
But boy, we're getting there fast, and I love it. I dig it, baby. Like a garden. Dig it. What's
You
your
going to any high school
like?
games tonight? Oh, my weekend,
Man.
tonight I'm going game of the night here in the region, Andrean versus Hanover. I'll be there. We'll be live probably like, I don't know, 6:50-ish, Central Time. Go live there, but if Andrean wins, they'll get a share of the conference title for regulars for the NCC. If Hanover wins,
The Fighting Dan Dockages.
it's gonna be a good game. I think I told you yesterday they have this one kid, Jimmy Finley. He's going to NIU. Last week against Chittard, he scored 2 touchdowns. Doing that Sunday. What am I doing Sunday? Sunday watching the Bears game, and then
Did I do that?
What?
Did I do that? Oh, I was playing a video in my ear. I didn't realize it.
Oh. And then I'm going to be working at. I have another side. I have a side job that I do. I'm a lighting director at a theater, so we have a concert going on Sunday.
You've got a lot going on, brother.
Yeah, I don't know what rest is.
Yeah, I hear you that. I'm used to that.
Yeah, we have what is it? It's a tribute to John Denver.
Oh my. Whoa, you just lost me there.
Yeah, it makes my life a little easier on lights. Not too much lights go on for a John Denver concert, but the one I'm really excited for.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. He won the Entertainer of the Year or something in country music, like back in the 70s. And an entertainer named Charlie Rich was the one giving it. And when he read it, or when he saw it, he didn't read it. He just reached into his pocket and said, and the winner, and he had this accent, is my friend Mr. John Denver. And he lit the envelope. I don't think he was a fan. Let me pull Zach in. Oops. Hey, Zachary, how are you, brother?
How we doing?
Cannot complain. It's I've got to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to a semi-weekend off.
Yeah, just catching up on stuff. We're going to head toward basketball season. It's just kind of, it's how it goes this time of year.
Oh, yeah. When I say off, I mean not having to do all the other stuff.
Right, exactly.
All right, you got about 20 seconds, Jim. You go ahead and do it at 58:50.
Music this time, please. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Studios here on this Friday, brought to you by our good friends at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, located in Nashville, Indiana, the heart of beautiful Brown County. Make sure you stop by. What a great time of year it is to be there. Always good. But brought to you, also bringing Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joining us. And Zach, it's been a week that a lot of people can kind of take their breath, catch their breath rather, after Indiana football has just jetted out to this 6-0 start, shocking a lot of Hoosier fans and a lot of national pundits alike. But they get to take a break. Also, Nebraska on a bye week, which is a little unusual for both teams to have a bye week before they clash on the field. But that will be the case in a game that is sold out in Bloomington. So crowd is going to be there and happening for a noon game, and it should be an absolutely spectacular environment in Bloomington next Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be, and I don't get the sense, if you look at kind of the distribution of tickets, I think there are only a couple thousand left at the beginning of the week. I don't get the sense this is going to be a one that's moving hard because of Nebraska fans coming over. Obviously, Nebraska's excited, and frankly, should be. I think Nebraska's looked good at times this season. I don't know if they've quite looked as good as Indiana, although I would point out they've probably played some slightly tougher competition. But I mean, if I look at, I've been citing the Indiana's sort of position in the FPI a lot in the last few weeks. I mean, Nebraska's currently basically right on the cut line between 7-5 and 8-4. They're top 40. They're 5-1. I forget what I think they, like Indiana, have we kind of talked about some of these scheduling dynamics in the preseason. Nebraska, like Indiana, frankly, have a more forgiving schedule early in the year. And like Indiana, it gets a lot more difficult in the second half. They've got to come to IU. Then they go to Ohio State. They get UCLA at home. Then they have actually, again, if I'm not – no, I think they have a bye week again the week earlier than Indiana does. But then they go to USC. They host Wisconsin. Then they end at Iowa. So, they've started 5-1. I think if you're a Nebraska fan, you'd probably trade in for 3-3 over those last 6 here. So it's not a dissimilar dynamic to Indiana in the sense that you always knew that you needed to take advantage of the first half of the season to set yourself up, to maybe, more capitalize on opportunities than feel pressure in the second half. But they've done that. And I think this is going to be, at this point, I would be surprised if this is not the big noon kickoff game next Saturday. I would be surprised if it's College game day, given what the SEC slate has. But you're going to have a national TV audience. You're going to have a national show in town, and you're going to get a chance, if you're Indiana, to really put your best foot forward. I think in a way that if Indiana beats Nebraska, I think a lot of the complaints about Indiana's schedule thus far probably have to go away, and you have to start, reframing what Indiana is accomplishing here through sort of a different lens.
Yeah, because there are just too many metrics to look at. And I get that a lot of people can say, well, that's built on a house of cards, which I would disagree with. And I continue to point at Alabama going to Vanderbilt, and it can happen. You've got to be focused every week. As these guys talk about taking it one game at a time, there's a reason. You have to be focused on the immediate, the clear and present danger. Indiana, this one of the things that Kurt Cignetti has talked about is handling success and just doing just what I just talked about. They've had 2 weeks off to get healed up, some nicks and whatever bumps and bruises they might have, but also to continue to work on the offense, which has been utterly efficient. Probably the most efficient in the league and one of in the country. But I agree with you. They beat Nebraska. Then the fact that Curtis Rourke, who leads the Big Ten in yardage and touchdowns, is just right now, he's the Big Ten MVP at this moment. And then those people, I don't think they have a choice but to connect those two and say, okay, these are legit numbers, and it will continue. They'll get another opportunity behind Nebraska with Washington coming in. And then if they're able to get through those two and be at 8-0 with all else that they've accomplished, there's no doubt that everyone will just be forced to say, okay, we have to admit it. Indiana football is good. As hard as that is for any of us to say, facts are facts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, to be honest, listen, I know we can all get caught in the Twitter. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this show.
You can do whatever you like.
I don't think anyone who's remotely serious has been kind of spouting that bullshit. And when I say that, what I mean is I think people who pump the brakes have been, with reason, have been pumping it on things like the playoff and like, okay, slow down. 6-0 is a nice start, but you are going to have to not least simply because you're going to need a better resume. You're going to have to beat some better teams. You're going to have to beat some better teams to prove you're at that level. You're also going to have to beat some better teams because, frankly, if the season ended today, Indiana doesn't have a resume for the playoffs just because they haven't beaten anybody. They've beaten, maybe one bowl team. Again, let's, you go back to the FPI numbers. They think Maryland's probably a 6-6 team. That's probably the only bowl team Indiana's played to this point. Now, they've won all their games. No one's taken that away from them. But the point is, you've got to beat better teams, not just for the purpose of, quote unquote, proving it, but also because you're just going to need better resume wins. But I don't think anybody serious has looked at what Indiana's done through these first 6 games and in any genuine way suggested that it's not real, that like somehow, that it's a mirage. If you look at the advanced metrics, again, you look at S&P Plus, you look at FPI. I think there were some good numbers running around on Twitter yesterday about expected points added per play, the offense in particular, the defense. Actually, if you look at the analytics numbers, Indiana's defense, maybe unsurprisingly, has been a little bit more middle of the pack than Indiana's offense. I don't think that's a surprise. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. I think Indiana's defense has been good, but it's Indiana's offense that has just been outstanding. Indiana has the best offense in the Big Ten. If you look at the raw numbers, they have the second, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the best passing offense in the Big Ten. They have the best total offense in the Big Ten. That's yards per game. They have the best scoring offense in the Big Ten. If you even want to look at something like rushing, if you pulled together, if you basically made all 4 of Indiana's running backs into one running back, they would lead the Big Ten in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. It is almost, it is just a statistical reality that Indiana is almost certainly the best red zone offense in the country this season. They have been remarkably efficient on third downs as well. This is the first time in program history they've scored 40-plus points in 5 straight games. They haven't trailed for a snap yet this year. I don't think anybody worth taking seriously, at least, is out there saying that Indiana is somehow, I don't know what the word would be, like fraudulent for its 6-0 start. But what I do think, and this is where, I've gotten questions, for example, about is Curtis Rourke in the Heisman conversation. What I do think is this all speaks to something we all kind of need to adjust to, which is when you start 6-0, the way that Indiana has started, the way it's won these games, we begin to reframe the conversation. And it's no longer how good is Indiana relative to expectations or how good is Indiana compared to its historical norms. We start to reframe it around how good is Indiana compared to the best teams in the country and how good are its players compared to the best players in the country. And if you get into that conversation, that's when I think it's fair to say, okay, but you need to beat some teams that are likely to finish with winning records. You need to maybe go on the road and get a result at a Michigan State. What do you do when Michigan comes to town? And on and on. You pointed out that Washington game is looking, kind of tasty. And Washington is in the midst of a fairly difficult stretch too. They have Iowa on the road tomorrow. Then they have a bye week before they come in here. It's possible. I would guess they'll lose that game, but it's possible Iowa comes in here 5-2 and Indiana at worst is 6-1. And then you have another one of these games that is that a 3:30 CBS game? Is that a sad, because I'm imagining it's not going to be a noon game with Washington coming east. Is that a Saturday night game on NBC? Another national audience? The point is, really, I think what reasonable people are saying is if we're reframing, because Indiana's earned the right to have its sort of narrative reframed, if we're reframing the narrative around Indiana, then we are going to have to raise the bar and say, well, if you're 6-0, No one cares about bowl eligibility anymore. No one cares about, hey, can Kurt Cignetti keep his string of winning seasons? Can he get it to 14? Now it's, how high can you climb? Can you get to 9 and match the single season wins record in program history? Can you get to 10 and break it? Can you get to 11 and get to a playoff? Can you win, maybe all but one of your remaining games and put yourself in the conversation to go to the Big Ten championship game? This is where I think people have started to say, not necessarily that Indiana's been fraudulent to start the season, but more just that as good as it's been, now you got to see them do it against better teams to believe that it's something that can sustain at a higher level.
Without question. And speaking earlier with Todd, Leary, I talked about every game, at least in my opinion, every game on the schedule from here out, well, actually, since the Maryland game, gets harder every week. After Maryland, you went on the road. So that's just adds more difficulty. And we saw that. Now you come back and you play the best team that they've played up to this point in the season so far. Well, that happens again after that when they play Washington. Then they go to Michigan State, and although Michigan State is not the level of teams that Nebraska and Washington are, it's at Washington State in East Lansing where 80,000 people wait for you. That's an unbelievable tough environment. Then you come back to play a tough Michigan team. Then you have to go to Ohio State, and you end with a rivalry game against Purdue, which may or may not be the easiest game out of those 6. Who knows? But they will have all the testing needed going forward. And but it is crazy to look and not look at a schedule and think that, okay, these 4 games are losses. And that's just not the case to think that they're in every game. And even with Ohio State, we've all considered that a probable loss all season. But I'll tell you more how I feel about that after this weekend when I see them play Oregon, because neither of those teams have actually played anybody either that I remember without going back to look at the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to a certain extent. Nebraska's obviously played Illinois at home. Now they lost that game, so you only get so much credit for playing a tougher schedule when you lose against that schedule. I think Nebraska probably deserves some credit for playing, beating Rutgers last week. I think Rutgers is another team that's probably going to be in or around kind of the bowl conversation. Again, I'm referring back, and I don't mean to use this as just a cheat sheet, but the FBI projections right now have them trending toward 8-4. But I mean, it's not completely unfair, to sort of point out, like, for example, until Washington beat Michigan, they hadn't really beaten anybody meaningful this season. I saw somebody mention, no, Ohio State's not played the most difficult schedule. And here's the thing. And I think this is where, number one, this stuff's always going to be fodder for debates and Twitter arguments and things. And that's just part of it. Like that's part of what fans get to do. When you're having a really good season and you get to be excited, you get to argue about who's best on Twitter or on message boards. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like I get into it when I, with soccer, like, believe me, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it is, again, kind of reflective of this same idea I keep coming back to, which is when you win more, you have, and there's more at stake, you have, and suddenly expectations and opportunities both climb, then you insert yourself into conversations you aren't used to being a part of. And I'm not trying to damn Indiana football with faint praise. I just, like, we've both been around this program long enough to know you didn't used to need to get on Twitter and yell about how Ohio State hasn't played anybody either. You know what I mean? Because Indiana was 3-3 and Ohio State was 5-0, and they were not the same. It's different when you win, and this is what's different. There's I'm gonna use it, I think, for something I'm writing next week. But there's a famous quote that is attributed to Greg LeMond, who was the first American to win the Tour de France back in the 80s. And somebody asked him if at some point cycling got easier for him, as he got better at it, if it ever just got easier for him. And he said, it doesn't get easier, you just go faster. Like that is kind of the way college football works. If you win more, it doesn't get easier. You don't start getting things handed to you. The road isn't suddenly paved more smoothly or evenly. It actually gets harder because suddenly it's not just like, hey, 7-5 will be a nice season. But what can you achieve? How high can you climb? Just how high is your star going to soar this year? The flip side is, I've thought about this too. I think back to that 2012 IU basketball season under Tom Crean when Indiana beat Kentucky and Ohio State and, kind of came out of nowhere. They were a 5 seed. They got to the Sweet 16, etc. That season was just like from the day they beat Kentucky, that season was just kind of like, just sort of like a never-ending march of joy. Because once they beat Kentucky, and certainly once they beat Ohio State, all the questions about, is Indiana for real? Is Indiana going to the tournament? Is Indiana on the bubble? Whatever. It all went away. And yet at the same time, it was kind of too early for it to be replaced with expectation around, okay, but you better win the league. You better not waste this, because everyone can kind of look out ahead and say this team's best days are ahead of it. Now, this football team is a little different. But my point is, like, you don't get seasons like this a lot where a team achieves so far out ahead of initial expectation that, like, this just gets to kind of be all fun. Like if Indiana goes 3-3 from here, that's still one of the 3 best seasons in program history. If they win their bowl game, it's the best season in program history. Like we're sitting here and we're kind of talking about, like, and I understand, and Indiana's earned the right to be in these conversations about the playoff, about strength of schedule, about who's played and when who's played and whatever else. But the other part of it is, like, there's a part of you that just sort of says, like, enjoy it, because the thing is, if Indiana comes back and does it again next year, and I'm not talking, I know nobody's thinking too far out in the future, but let's live in a world where Indiana comes back and does it again next year. Well, it's not all going to feel new and wonderful. It's suddenly going to be like, okay, but we expected that now, so it's a little bit less fun and it's a little bit more stressful, right? Whereas this year, it's like, if you're an Indiana football fan, this is just fun. Like, this is just gravy. And you just kind of get to take the pressure off and just see how high your team can climb. Like I said, it doesn't get easier. You just go faster. And the question is how fast Indiana can go. And I think, these next 2 games, Nebraska, certainly Washington, I think Nebraska is a little better than Washington. Particularly, I think Nebraska is better defensively. And I think actually Nebraska is probably the best defense Indiana's played to this point. These 2 games to me really frame what to expect from that last month of the season. Can Indiana genuinely beat Michigan? Can Indiana go on the road to Ohio State and compete? Can Indiana get to 10 wins in the regular season? I think if they win these 2 games, the answer is yes, because I think this is when you're starting to punch your way through the upper middle half of the Big Ten, and you're starting to kind of raise yourself above the teams that are even going to go, 8-4, 7-5, maybe 9-3. You're pushing them beneath you, and you're saying, and I'm rambling, forgive me, but obviously we've all had the bye week to think about this a lot. You're pushing them beneath you, and you're saying, we're going a level above. This is where I think Indiana proves that, is these next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And I think that they've been looking forward to that, to be able, the team, the coaching staff, they're looking forward to having that feather in their cap. And I think if they are able to defeat Nebraska, that really will propel them with even more confidence than they have built up through those first 6 games, because not that they have any doubt in themselves, but they will know that they have the proof, and will just play even further. And this talk about a Big Ten championship game or college football playoffs, as crazy as it would have sounded 6 weeks ago. It is very real, and the Big Ten is going to play a big part in that. Ohio State is kind of the linchpin in everything here because they play Oregon this weekend. Indiana does not play Oregon. Ohio State plays Penn State. Indiana does not play Penn State. But Indiana does play Ohio State. So Ohio State is going to have a big say in who joins if it's them, by the way. We're all assuming it's going to be Ohio State. They could lose to Oregon and somehow get upset by someone else. You never know. But we all expect Ohio State to be there.
It's different. Like I tried doing this after the Northwestern game, like briefly, like just looking at tiebreakers and things. And the problem is with the unbalanced schedule. Like if you look at it, Ohio State still plays Indiana, still plays Michigan, still plays Purdue, still plays Nebraska. Those are all common opponents with Indiana. Now, Oregon still plays Michigan, still plays Maryland, still plays Washington, but Ohio State doesn't play Maryland or Washington. But then I think Ohio State does play or did play Michigan State, who Oregon and Indiana both do play. So my point is, and then you can get in, we can dig through Penn State as well. It's basically just like way too early because like the tiebreakers are going to be so confusing. And I don't know if anybody read the tiebreaker email I did in the preseason. I did not expect it to be relevant to Indiana this year, but we are where we are. Like step 5 is to use some analytics company to basically break a tie. The company will say, we think that this team's better than that team. Step 6 is a coin toss. So, and I mean, it would be incredibly difficult to get there. But the point is, when you have such an unbalanced schedule, and this is going to be the same way for basketball, everybody needs to get ready for it. When you have such an unbalanced schedule, it is going to lead you to a place where it's going to be very hard to compare teams. And, the Big Ten and the SEC both have set up some pretty intensive, kind of tiebreakers to make sure they don't get to a place where they're going to this place, like I think it's called Sports Stats, and saying basically, can you separate these two teams for us so that we know which one to send to Indianapolis or Atlanta in the SEC's case? But basically, the short version of this is I tried to comb through some of these tiebreakers after the Northwestern game, and like there's too many data points that fit, comparing these 2 or 3 schools, but not this 4th school, or these 2 schools, but not these other 2 schools. We kind of I think we're probably going to be, because we're in a situation where ultimately you're trying to throw the whole, because this is the other thing people got to get used to. We don't have divisions anymore. So it's not even just like, well, just look at your division. You only have to worry about the other 2 teams in that. You have to throw the entire conference into one pot together and then separate them via tiebreakers. I don't think we're really going to be comfortably able to do that until probably week 10, if not week 11, before we can start gaming out scenarios that say, because this team beat these teams but lost to this team, and because this team beat these teams but lost to that team, then this will happen if this team does this and that team does that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. We'll certainly find out as we'll get back to action next week, a big weekend, as Indiana has homecoming with the Nebraska game the night before that. Hoosier hysteria as the basketball season will also tip off. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, I thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as always, Jim.
Appreciate you, sir. We've got lots more coming up from the Hard Truth Studios here at high atop Brick House number 1. Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, will join us next as we get to talk some more football right after these messages.
All right, you got 128.
And you can see if you can add Matt to the stage. Okay, perfect. Matthew. He may not be listening yet. If you are, I cannot hear you, sir. Let me put him in. Add to stage. Matthew? He may have stepped away, but if not, I shall text him. I'm sure he can hear me. And don't forget to change the corner things. There's each when we come in to one, and then like midway through, just switch it to a different one.
Okay.
What is that? Oh, that's Reynolds.
Yeah.
Couldn't see it. Maybe he did step away because he didn't respond to my text. Oh, isn't it so much better being able to converse?
Not having it all silent in between.
Oh, not being able to communicate is the worst thing. Well, brother Rudy, he's not doing it on purpose. He'd like to be playing, that I assure you.
Hello.
There we go. The golden voice.
How we doing?
Great, brother. How are you? Sorry about last week.
It's all good, man.
Hey, you know, I think I've said this before, but I really one of these Mondays, I want to just surprise the hell out of Don Fisher and and have you on and you welcome him, do the whole things. Welcome in.
Well, you know, he's heard it. It's the story goes. I don't know if you know,
but he's never been interviewed by himself, I don't think.
Well, he's heard it. I've been on the air with him doing it, and
okay.
The story goes, my brother, when I got married, my brother reached out to him and got him to do a voiceover of him introducing the wedding party. And everybody at the wedding thought it was me doing Don Fisher introducing the wedding party. Yeah, true story. Yeah, so he's an unbelievably good sport about it. But I like to tread lightly, though. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, I get it completely.
You know, you don't want to like move across the border of like being disrespectful, which I don't think I would do, but you never know how people like.
No.
You never know how like people perceive that, you know?
I'm telling you, his and Bob Knight's are two of the hardest to do, and it's because of the way they enunciate their words, for one thing.
Well, I think Fish is actually really easy because of the inflection. You know, if you have a really strong inflection, you get the inflection part down first, and then you match the voice.
Yeah, you're still one of the few that I've heard just sound good, and I'm like,
yeah.
And then Bob Knight definitely, the way he says some words, it's just you could pick that voice out in 2 seconds. I can name that voice in 2 notes.
Yeah, Bob Knight had that strong, like Midwest Ohio accent. Oh man,
you gotta let me know when, Rob.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Music, intro music. Remember, not out, but in. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Friday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio with you. Jim Coyle here. joined now by our good friend Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts. And, man, we're deep into all kinds of football season now, Matt. Even seems like the NFL just started, but they're, 5 weeks in. The high schools are nearing the end of the line and started getting close to the playoffs. College football at the halfway mark already. And the Colts, man, they're right there. They've had so many injuries to the offense with AR going down, Jonathan Taylor, and then Michael Pittman Jr., the latest blow. But ironically, Joe Flacco is doing a superb job. He did all that he could do against Jacksonville. And unfortunately, the defense gave up the ghost. But the offense has been playing well, especially when you consider how much they've been decimated.
Yeah, these injuries on both sides of the ball, really concerning. You have this many key injuries this early on in the season, right? You talked about quarterback and star running back, and now Michael Pittman Jr. might be out for an extended period of time. And then the defense has already been down a couple of key players for a while now in the last couple of weeks without DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Kenny Moore, Tyquan Lewis was put on IR. So, the depth is really being tested here early on in the season, and guys are stepping up, but you're still 2-3, and you have a huge game coming up on Sunday against Tennessee, trying to avoid an 0-3 start to the season within the division, which I think if you start 0-3 inside the AFC South, it's going to be pretty tough, honestly, to win the division with already 3 losses with, still plenty of AFC South games still to go. I think it's going to be tough. Last year, Houston won the AFC South, but they were 4-2 record-wise in the AFC South, and they're already 2-0 in the division so far this year. So this is a huge pivotal game coming up on Sunday down in Tennessee. I think Anthony Richardson is trending towards playing. But yeah, Joe Flacco, like you said, came in, steadied the ship, and the Colts squandered an opportunity to win a football game where they scored 34 points with a backup.
Absolutely. And not only, you mentioned the division in which they've already played in a few of those. Behind the Titans, was it 2 weeks after the Titans? You've got the second game with Houston.
Yeah, the month of October is brutal for the Colts in terms of, logistics. 4 out of 5 on the road, 3 on the road, 3 straight on the road against AFC South teams, right? Jacksonville last week, Tennessee this week, and then the next road game for the Colts is going to be October 27th, I believe, against the Houston Texans. And then you play after that another road game against the undefeated Minnesota Vikings, who are coming out of nowhere and having a really good season. So that just goes to show you that it's the NFL, man. Week to week, you have no idea what to expect. And some of the teams that, were anticipated to be being bad are good, and vice versa. So injuries play a lot into it. But, yeah, this is a huge, I think, pivotal stretch for the Colts. Starting the month, I don't know if it was a make or break stretch for the Colts, but it was a really important one to see where they were at the end of it in terms of how viable they're going to be for the playoffs and how much margin of error they have going into the months of November and December.
Yeah, and this is a kind of a make or break year for the Colts. I know that there's only so much we could talk about there, but and it's not. I mean, Shane Steichen seems to put together good plans, good game plans. It doesn't look like they have issues with game plans, but there's definitely things they're going to have to improve and improve quickly this season, whether they make the playoffs or not. Because they're kind of getting into this spinning your wheels in the mud routine.
Well, you're right. I mean, this is a really big year for the Colts. They haven't made the playoffs since 2020. They haven't won the division since 2014. AFC South games. And there's just too much talent on this roster to not be competing for significant things this year. And the reality is, when you're 2-3 and you've had this many injuries, you can say what you want, but there's still a boatload of the season left to play, and they're still in the mix in the AFC. I think there's going to be some wild card teams that have less records than they did a year ago because of the parity in the conference nowadays. So they have everything in front of them still. But you're right. I mean, you're trying to win, but also develop a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson. And in playing him, despite Joe Flacco's consistency and, like you said, his ability to give the Colts a great chance to win. And quite frankly, they won a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers where he came in and guided the ship and provided some consistency on offense. And they should have won last week. The defense let them down. There's no doubt about that, right? When you score 34 points on the road with a backup, you should win a football game, but that didn't happen. But they're trying to win and also develop a young quarterback in Anthony Richardson. And you have to be willing to go through the speed bumps of a guy when you draft him 4th overall that has as little experience as he did coming out of college. Plus you factor in last year, misses 13 games with that injury. You're going to have to be willing to go through some of the speed bumps. And, I likened it, I'm an Indy guy, you're a Bloomington guy, so you'll understand this. I likened it to I-69, right? I-69, there's a lot of traffic, there's construction, there's some stop and go, but you know what? Once it's done, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's smooth sailing, and that's what the Colts are trying to do with Anthony Richardson. That's the point they're trying to get here with a young quarterback that's trying to figure out the NFL, go through these mistakes, and get that initial speed bump out of the way with him getting all this experience right out of the gate. And hopefully he turns into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL with all that he can do with his dynamic playmaking ability.
Great analogy there. It's actually perfect. I would have never thought it that way, but you could not have said it better. I'm telling you, because buddy, all the way you're just flying, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, hey, what's this? 3rd and 80?
Right. Why are we down to one lane here all of a sudden,
Yeah, and then you come out of it, and it's like going through one of those wrecks where you're like, where the hell's the wreck?
Up by me, it's taken over 465. So I-69 and 465 are open, but it's a little choppy, right? There's a lot of stop and go. There's orange barrels everywhere. But once it's done and it's fully open and everything's full bore, 4 or 5 lanes abreast, man, then I think you're going to be humming. And again, I think that's where Anthony Richardson's trying to get to.
Absolutely. So we'll look forward to that. And Matt will be on the call. Love watching. There's going through to pull out some pictures of you for our thumbnails and stuff we make. There was one I wanted to use where you're in the booth signaling the touchdown, baby. And I'm like, that's a great picture, but I wasn't able to use that one. But
why the hell not?
Well, the back couldn't get all the background out, but and it wasn't quite as clear. But I'll look at it again. Maybe I'll do some Photoshop on it. And,
there you go.
And make you look like Gene Simmons or something.
Even better.
Lots of college games, man. And I know you're a fan of, you don't get to follow it as much as you'd like because of always preparing for what you do, but getting a chance sometimes to check it out. The Big Ten this year is now the Big 18, I guess you could call it. And buddy, you realize how big 18 is when you go to basketball media days and they do it all in one day. That was that was a gauntlet. But this weekend, Northwestern plays Maryland tonight. I think that's going to be a good game, personally. Northwestern's quarterback took a big jump last week after having a bye week against Indiana. He performed pretty well. So, and Maryland is kind of the same boat, although it's at Maryland. I think that's going to be a good game, although Maryland's a 10.5 point favorite. Washington travels to Iowa. Another huge game because for Indiana fans, Washington comes up after the Hoosiers play Nebraska. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Hoosier fans would rather Washington wins. So if Indiana does so, it makes that win look better. Wisconsin traveling to Rutgers. I think Rutgers is going to get back on the winning side. But Purdue goes to USC, Matt, and that is a huge game. USC is they've got 2 losses already, and Penn State is undefeated, but they haven't really played anyone. Illinois, I take that back. Illinois is a very good team.
It's so weird to see now that we're in the era of transfer portal and NIL. I saw the matchup pop up the other day. You said Rutgers is playing Wisconsin this weekend. Is that correct? I thought I saw that.
Wisconsin travels to Piscataway.
7-8 years ago, you would have said, all right, Wisconsin's favored by 3 touchdowns.
Yes.
And now, and I think I'm discrediting the amount of work and the stability that Schiano has provided Rutgers in that program.
And
but
he has.
That being said, it's so weird to look at some of these historical matchups and now you say, well, that's going to be a pretty close game between Northwestern and Iowa, whereas again, 7-8 years ago, you would have said Iowa wins that game by, 28 points or so. And it's just amazing to me how much the gap has been closed with teams' ability to, change the roster with the transfer portal, offer people to come in and entice kids to come to your program with the money now. And I mean, IU football is the poster child for that, right? With what they're doing with Kurt Cignetti. So just on a more micro level with IU football, because they're the Big Ten team that I actually carve out time to watch. It's fascinating to me as a schlep rock IU fan historically to watch these games the last 6 weeks. And I think it's already kind of been beaten out of me. Hopefully I'm wrong about this. I'm knocking on wood here, and hopefully I'm not proven incorrect. But I think it's already being drilled out of me to expect Indiana football to beat itself. They're not doing that under Kurt Cignetti, right? That's always what you waited for watching IU football historically, no matter who the coach was, no matter what the regime in charge was. And it was always just wait for the first sign of major adversity, and then Indiana's going to wilt, and then they're going to fold, and then the avalanche is really going to start to pile on, and that just doesn't happen with this team. And it's crazy to me that the turnover margin is so in favor. The penalties are down. The stupid mistakes seemingly never happen. They're so well organized. They're so put together. They don't beat themselves. It is just so refreshing to watch. The football team that you root for, and to have it be as competent as it is. And they haven't trailed all season. I know the schedule's not all that crazy, but how many football teams of the past in IU lore would have this schedule and already have 2-3 losses?
Absolutely.
Right? That Maryland game, they never win that Maryland game in the past, right? Last week they probably would have had more trouble with Northwestern 2-3 years ago than they did this year. So it's been so refreshing to watch IU football and to see them be the better team every week, the more disciplined team, and the team that just doesn't make mistakes, doesn't beat itself.
And not only that, when people look at the Big Ten statistics offensively, Indiana's Curtis Rourke, the top quarterback in the league, ahead of names like Dylan Gabriel and Ohio State's quarterback.
Well, let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. I don't know what year it was. This is probably and this is going back way back. Let's 2009, 2010. IU's at Iowa, and IU would always in big road games like that, when they're playing above themselves, so to speak, historically, right? When they're at Iowa, they're at Ohio State, at Michigan, they're always going to hang in there for 3.5 quarters, and then just the roof's going to cave in. And I don't know what year it was again, but IU is at Iowa and they're up most of the game. Iowa comes back, they tie the game, and then IU's got the ball. The place is going crazy. They're trying to set up a screen. Iowa defends it really well, and the quarterback for Indiana just tries to dirt the ball, to avoid taking a sack and go on. Offensive lineman, it hits off the offensive lineman's heel, bounces up into the air, and then it's caught by a defensive lineman by Iowa, and they run it back for a pick six, 60 yards. That is so IU football, right? That is only those types of things happen to IU football historically, and they're just not happening under Kurt Cignetti because I think they're better coached, and hopefully the football gods are on their side after decades of anguish.
Yeah, I just think about what they've accomplished already. And I know that we've kind of beat this a little bit with others, but I haven't gotten to talk to you about it. But you look at it differently. You see professional football every week. You see,
oh God,
you know what the different levels.
It is so sophisticated. I mean, Jim, it is so sophisticated. The offensive concepts, the player discipline, guys being in the right place at the right time, and just the little things, right? This is going to sound silly, but you don't see guys running on the field late because they don't know they're not supposed to be in, or vice versa, right? You don't have personnel miscues. How many times this year have you seen the quarterback just point at a receiver like you're supposed to be here, no, not over there, right? It is so sophisticated, and competent is the right word, and competent is probably underselling it. But after the last couple of years, culture, accountability, buy-in, you looked at shots of the players on TV over the last couple of years on the sidelines. They don't look like they want to be there. They don't look like they're bought in. Guys, as jerseys and shirts are untucked. They kind of look ragtag. It is a professional outfit right now. And that is a 30,000-foot view of things too. Yeah,
it's crazy, but that's what happens when you do things and you do them the right way. And Curt Cignetti is well, we'll find out how this story ends, but right now it's looking pretty damn good. Indiana, if they end up in the Big Ten championship, that just going to, I don't know, that to me that just smashes anything that's ever happened in college football. You taking the legitimately worst D1 program in history with the most losses amongst all D1 teams, one of the worst winning percentages amongst all D1 teams that has had one winning non-COVID season in 15 years, and you take them from 3-9 and 1-8 to what they could be.
Jim, I've always said there's no excuse for Indiana football to be as bad as they have historically been at football, right? They've got all the money coming in from the Big Ten. They got the facilities. There's been buy-in from the leadership seemingly down there, right? The investment in football with facilities. There's been no reason why Indiana football can't be Wisconsin. They can't be Iowa or Michigan State. And by that, I mean you go to a bowl game every year. You're consistently winning 7-8 games every year. And then once every 5-6 years, you have a roster where you can do something really special, right? Play on New Year's Day. Nowadays, with the expanded playoff system, make the playoffs every couple of years. There's no reason for that. There's been no reason for that. And Curt Cignetti is living proof that, what does he always say? There's going to be no self-imposed limitations. He's exactly right about that. There's no reason Indiana football can't be those teams historically. And in 1 year, he's proving that thought by me right. There's no doubt about that.
And he always talks about playing to a standard. And that is a standard that he has brought in and he has held everyone to, the players, the coaches, even the fans. So, and it is all getting there. Looking forward to it. Big game of the weekend, Ohio State and Oregon, because they're both ranked in the top 5. I don't know that I've seen them do anything yet that sells me on them being in the top 5, but they are what they are, and we'll certainly see who takes kind of the reins as the leader of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I know nothing about those two teams. I haven't seen them play all year. So it's going to be a great matchup. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be fun to watch. But I think as it relates to IU's schedule, who is Ohio State beating? I know they beat Iowa last week, but everybody's talking about and trying to discredit Indiana's success so far. I mean, who the hell has Ohio State topped?
No one of note, not yet. That's why I'm saying neither one of these teams have done anything. And so we'll see. But I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy it. And what do you get to do on Saturday? See, this is a home game, right?
Road game. Yeah.
Oh, you're on the road. Oh, down in Nashville. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Don't get hit with a goalpost.
Try not to. Yeah. Yeah. They were booking. They went like 6 miles down the road. They made good time.
Dude, got to lift it all up over the police cars and everything, all the traffic on Broadway. That was a cool, wild scene, but mind-boggling to see number one Alabama.
Where would if Indiana one day beats Ohio State at home, Ohio State is ranked number 1 or top 5.
I can already stop you. You can't get the damn goalpost out of the stadium.
All right. Well, hypothetically though, if they could, where are they taking her? Are they going down to Lake Monroe down by you? Like, where's the nearest body of water?
They would not search for water. They would probably take it to maybe the site of where the old stadium used to be and plant it in the ground. I don't know. That's a great question because I kind of thought of that. I'm like, what the hell would they do with it? First of all, it would be they couldn't get it out of the stadium without breaking it in pieces, and it would have to go up the stairs. There's no way out anymore. So, but wouldn't that be fun just to see him tear the goalpost down? I know that Vanderbilt had to pay like $100,000. Do you think they cares? They couldn't have bought that kind of advertising for $1 million.
Oh yeah, I can guarantee you the applications now to Vanderbilt are up 30%.
Matt Taylor, appreciate you, my friend, and have a great broadcast. We'll be watching for the Colts, hoping for a win.
All right, man. Thanks as always. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Matt Taylor joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And we've got to take one last break. We'll be back with more from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after this. Boy, I cut it close. It's gonna happen when we come back, and I'll do a quick out.
All right.
Because I'll be at like 153, right? Or 4.
Coming back, 154.
So I'll be quick. Well, that's 3 good segments for today, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All righty. When will we be back?
54.
All right, so I'll be as fast as possible. I can't remember. Did I go over in the first?
First one had a little bit longer, but I mean, to be honest, in post-production, it doesn't really matter because I can just cut it. So, I mean, if you want to, whenever you're
55.
ready.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this beautiful Friday, and what a great weekend to head out to the Hard Truth Distilling Company over in Nashville, Indiana. Hoosier made through and through, so make sure you go enjoy some of their products, enjoy them responsibly, never drink and drive, and I cannot tell you how much fun today was. Todd Leary, thanks for joining us. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, Matt Taylor from the Indy Colts, as well as and to Rob, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you for this week. An absolutely great week. Looking forward to doing it again. Of course, no post-game show this weekend because there's no game. So we'll be back on Monday to do it all again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.